We're getting up and leaving the big smoke far behind. Getting out of the city, out from behind the desk, and getting out there on the ground. Leaving the big smoke and heading out to the big desert, the big, open expanses of Central Australia. What is life like out here for Indigenous communities? Right now, communities beneath me are living under the Northern Territory National Emergency Response, or as it's come to be known, the intervention. How is the intervention affecting people's lives out here? People and communities we hear so much about in the media, so often so negatively portrayed. I'm joining the National Indigenous Television Network on a trip out to the Red Centre to see what we can find when we lift the veil on what is, for so many Australians, the great unknown.
Basically, Harts Range and Alcuda was like the centre of civilization before Alice Springs was even thought of, and that's where my ancestors grew up, and then they sort of migrated into the Alice area, and Dad grew up there with, you know, my uncles and aunties and family. But essentially, at the east of Alice Springs, where the Fig River is, the oldest river in the world, is where my country is. It's really interesting in respect of going back to that, because I actually have some stake or some, you know, ownership of that, but I'm not quite sure what that means yet. I actually get to see or learn firsthand about the intervention and what's happening with income management, CDMP, health checks, seeing what's actually, you know, how communities have been affected and some of my own peoples and how they're being affected. I'm not looking forward to that.
Over the next week, GetUp will be visiting Indigenous communities in the Central Australian and Western Desert regions to see firsthand exactly what issues these communities are facing.
So you're going out to communities this week to see some country you've never seen before. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm very excited about it. Obviously we know already, as you can see behind me, it's a very beautiful country. And you know, very scenic, and it's easy to see why people have such a spiritual connection to the land out here. But it's, you know, going to be another thing entirely to see what modern conditions communities are living in. A group of Australians live in a very different way to any other group, and it's going to be really interesting to talk to them, find out exactly what's going on, and more recently how these recent changes to how the government thinks they should live are affecting them on the ground. What we're going to see throughout the week as the other side to that is how that actually affects communities, how they're living, how their culture interacts with obviously the systems of government around here, the NT intervention, how that affects communities, families, and obviously the beautiful landscape that houses it all. So hopefully we're going to shine a light into that question as the week progresses.
Over the coming days, we're going to see some of the GetUp campaigns breathe life and see those campaigns in action. When we campaign to close the gap, just what is happening with the health services out here and how the community is working with those services to reduce the life expectancy gap and the other health indicators. When we let the government know our concerns about some of the aspects of the intervention, just how are those aspects playing themselves out and how are they affecting the lives of people in these communities? Just what stories are coming out from the heartland of our nation? And what can we as Australians do to shed some light on these questions? Perhaps once and for all, close the gap.